A visit to her family's home in Vlakfontein, Johannesburg, would leave a woman in shock and grief. This is the story of the Khoza family. Hi friends, welcome to the Ayira Faith channel. I am Ayira, and if you're new here, I do post true crime videos every True Crime Tuesdays. So if that's your kind of vibe, please consider subscribing. And without much further ado, let's get into today's story, which takes us into two places in the same country. First of all, we look at Vlakfontein in Johannesburg, and then go to Pietermaritzburg in KZN. So we are in Vlakfontein, Johannesburg. It is the 29th of October 2018. We meet Ningi Khoza, who had come to Vlakfontein to check in on her cousins. She had not been able to reach them for over a week now, and she had a bad feeling about things. So she climbs over the gate because it was locked from the inside. She gets into the compound and knocks on the door. There's no answer, so she goes round back and tries to peep through the window, and there was a black substance covering the windows, so she couldn't see inside. And on top of that, the compound was engulfed in a very bad stench, so she felt uneasy and decided to call the police. So the police finally arrived, and again they tried to knock on the door, no answer, so they broke in. And when they finally walked into the house looked deserted, apart from a horrible stench that hit them, that actually made their eyes water, and some of the police officers actually vomited. It was that bad. So they walked around the house and finally got into the first bedroom and were met with a heap of sand, like covered in the bedroom from corner to corner, all the four corners. But the stench was stronger in this bedroom, and Ningi finally understood what the black substance that she saw on the window when she was outside, that was blocking her vision from seeing inside the house. She finally understood what this was. It was actually a swarm of flies. So when they did a little bit of digging of the sand that was in the bedroom, they found 4 bodies, 2 women and 2 children. And when they walked around the house and went to the back room, they found 3 other bodies, a woman and 2 other children. So in total, these were 7 members of the Khoza family that were deceased and buried in the house in 2 different rooms. All of them were buried under sand. So Ningi was their cousin, and this house was owned by Mbali Khoza, who was living with her sister Dudu and their children. The victims were Mbali Khoza, who was 51 years old, Dudu Khoza, who was 46, Nomfundo, she was 28 years old, Luyanda was 7 years old, Karabo was 11 years old, Nakiyiso was 2 years old, and Bonga Konke was 2 years old. So these were 7 members of the Khoza family who were brutally murdered, and they were buried in that house. But there was some people missing, because there were not only 7 members living in this house, there were 8, 2 additional men. There was one Fita Kupe, who was Mbali's boyfriend. They had been together for 15 years at this point. And there was Subusiso Khoza. Subusiso Khoza was thought to be Mbali and Dudu's cousin, who was living with them in this particular house. The police actually started questioning the neighbors and a tenant who had rented a back room within the same compound. And what they heard was that the neighbors had last seen the family on 19th October 2018. The bodies were discovered on 29th October 2018. But something funny is that Mbali's boyfriend, that is Futi Kupe, was seen actually that very same day in the morning, because he's always there. He sleeps there. He comes back from work and sleeps there. And every morning they see him get up and leave for work. So this was suspicious, because how can he be living with dead bodies? Obviously there is a strong stench in the house. So he can't be living there without knowing that he's living with dead bodies. And wasn't he wondering where the rest of the family went? So of course he was a prime suspect. How can a normal human being live in the same house with corpses buried in it and not do anything about it? So of course he was the first suspect and he was arrested. But then there was the issue of Subusiso Khoza, who was thought to be a cousin of the family that was murdered. So he was nowhere to be found. They couldn't find his body, and they didn't know what happened to him. So it was up to the police to find out exactly where he is and what happened to Subusiso Khoza. So Fita Kupe, Mbali's boyfriend, was taken in for questioning soon thereafter. The police also searched the house and found some strange documents in connection with Subusiso Khoza. Remember, they didn't know where he was, and they were actually searching for him. So their investigation also led them to Pietermaritzburg, that is in KZN, KwaZulu-Natal. This is where the mother of Dudu and Mbali lived. Her name was Toko Khoza. This was the grandmother of Nomfundo and the great-grandmother of the rest. And they actually broke the bad news to her and told her, okay, we found your daughters dead, your grandchildren dead, and your great-grandchildren as well. But we're looking for Subusiso Khoza. And she actually told them about him. She described him as a gentle, quiet guy who had promised to buy her house, which she was really looking forward to. So the police finally revealed what they had found in the house, the strange items I had mentioned earlier relating to Subusiso. They had found some passports with different names, and it seems like he used aliases. His passport read Earnest Mabaso, and at some point it appeared like he was a Zimbabwean citizen, but the police were still investigating and uncovering things bit by bit. And so they were looking, he was a main suspect, was a person of interest because he was nowhere to be found, and it seemed like he had forged documents and forged an identity of some sort, like Subusiso Khoza was not his actual real name. So the police, of course, through the media, spread the word that they were looking for this person. His name is Subusiso Khoza, and that is his alias. I'm sorry, his real name is Earnest Mabaso, and they put it all over all media. And finally, people found him on Facebook. They found him under the name Subusiso Khoza on Facebook, and people were actually tagging him in the post and asking him to avail himself in the nearest police station and explain what happened to the Khoza family. So his reaction was quite weird because he reacted by changing his profile picture to a picture of an open fridge. I think it was to disguise or to throw people off his page, and just remove his face from his page so that people stop tagging him and stuff. But eventually he was tracked down in Mpumalanga at his grandmother's house, and I read that when he saw the police, he immediately started confessing, and he started crying and started saying he's sorry for what he has done. He didn't mean to do it. And his grandmother, upon hearing what he was saying, she broke down in tears because now she realized her grandson is actually a criminal. The police took him in, and he actually now confessed to the crime, and he confessed to how he killed them and why he killed them. So this is Earnest Mabaso's, aka Subusiso Khoza story. Earnest was born in 1994, and it's not clear whether he was Zimbabwean, because at first it was thought that he was Zimbabwean, but when I continued researching, it was finally revealed that he was a South African from Mpumalanga. Like I said, he was arrested at his grandmother's house in Mpumalanga. So he was born in 1994. At 16 years old, he was brought to an orphanage in Cape Town by police, and he had claimed that the family he was living with had molested and abused him, and so he had run away. But they were not his real family. They had just taken him in after he had left his mother's place in search of his father. So this family took him in, but after some time they started mistreating him and they molested him, so he ran away. So the police actually brought him to an orphanage in Cape Town, and the orphanage actually enrolled him in Masilia Secondary School, and that's where he was until grade 11, where he dropped out. And he did this by going to the principal's office and telling them, I have received a scholarship to study medicine in New York University, and so I'll be leaving school here on out, and I am going to New York to study medicine. So I'm not sure why the school did not follow up with maybe the orphanage and even just call to verify. I think it's because they trusted him, as everyone in his childhood described him as a very polite, quiet young man who would strike conversation with everyone and anyone he met. He was very friendly, and people easily trusted him. He was also very charming. So I think that's why maybe the school did not call the orphanage to find out. But yeah, he dropped out in grade 11, and he did not, of course, the caregivers at the orphanage had no idea that he wasn't going to school anymore. He used to leave in the morning as usual, go around town, do whatever or God knows what, and then come back in the evening as if he's come back from school. So one day in 2015, the caregiver that took him in wakes up and couldn't find him anywhere. She looks all over the house, but nothing. And she finally goes outside and notices that their family car is missing. She wakes up her husband and tells him what's happening. And they actually realize that he has taken more than just the family car. He took the bishop's handgun, the Bible, and a few other properties around the house. So they make a police report, but unfortunately the police were unable to track him down and find him. And from then on, his life kind of goes underground, and he resurfaces in July of 2018 on Facebook, when he opens a Facebook account and sorry about that, and befriends people called Khoza. The first person he befriends is Mbali Khoza. Actually started chatting her up and claimed that he was Matla Khozas, who is her uncle, her mother's brother, her uncle's long lost son, and she actually believed this. After chatting for a while, she actually took his number and added him in family WhatsApp groups and introduced him to the other family members as Matla's son, long lost son. And it's believed, the family believed that he actually was related to them, and he actually was Matla Khoza's son, because Matla was, he was deceased, so he wasn't there to collaborate or deny. But the family believed, because Matla was apparently a ladies' man, and he probably saw a lot of seeds out there. So they did not think anything funny about it. They thought probably he was, because as we know, our uncle, he was a ladies' man, so he probably is related to us. So after chatting online and on WhatsApp for about a month, Mbali actually invited him over to meet her mother, who is Toka Khoza. I read that he was very charming. Subusiso, aka Earnest Mabaso, was very charming, and the family actually just fell in love with him, especially Gogo, who was Toka Khoza. And she was very happy that she actually had a nephew, a long lost nephew that she actually had to finally met. And he, of course, introduced himself as Subusiso Khoza and said he was a medical doctor, and he was currently looking for work. He's just graduated from medical school. He was in New York medical school, but now he's back in South Africa, and he's actually looking at some hospitals and applying for some jobs. And he even promised Toka Khoza, that is Gogo, that is Mbali's mother, that is Matla's, his alleged father, Matla's sister. He actually promised to buy a house once he gets a job. And I understand the day was successful, and the family were happy to meet him, and it was like a final acceptance into the family. Like he was accepted fully into the family after that day. So during that gathering, he mentioned that he was looking for a job in Johannesburg, and Toka was like, hey, you know what, Mbali, my daughter, lives in Johannesburg. As you look for a job, you could live with her. And Mbali had no objection because this is his cousin. This is her cousin, sorry. So after the gathering ended, all of them moved to Johannesburg, that is Vlakfontein. And in Mbali's house, they were living Mbali, Dudu, and their children, together with Mbali's boyfriend, Mr. Kupe. And then those were 8 people, plus Subusiso Khoza, Earnest Mabaso. Those were now 9 people in that very same house. So all was well, and 3 months went by. Within those 3 months, he used to leave and pretend he's going to, every morning he's going to like look for a job, and also Mbali would come back in the evening with some jobs for him and ask him to, you know, I saw this, maybe it would suit you, if you want, please apply. And he would come up with one excuse after another not to apply. And probably Mbali didn't see anything wrong with this. She maybe just thought he's picky because he's very smart and he knows what he wants. But the truth is that this guy was a liar. He dropped out in grade 11, like I told you earlier. He did not receive any scholarship to go to any medical school. In fact, he was not a medical doctor at all. He had no qualifications at all. So it was just one excuse after another as to why he was not applying for these jobs. So fast forward to 29th October. What happened this particular day? 29th October is the day that they found these bodies. But they died like almost 2 weeks earlier. And this is what Earnest Mabaso said happened. Earnest Mabaso claimed that he was forced to kill this family by Mr. Kupe. Kupe was Mbali's boyfriend, as I had said earlier. He says that during the time that he had disappeared, that is between 2015 and 2018. Remember 2015 when he stole the bishop's car and handgun and disappeared, and then only reappeared in July 2018. He said he had been kidnapped by some people and taken to Cape Town and told that they had some work for him to do, and they actually forced him to target this particular family and kill them. And he actually said that Mbali's boyfriend, that is Kupe, that is Fita Kupe, Mbali's boyfriend, was actually among the people who kidnapped him and forced him to do this, and said that Fita is the one who gave him information about Mbali and her family and about Matla Khoza, and told him that Matla was a womanizer. Matla also died. So if you just come and say you are his long lost son, no one would refute your claim because you might as well be. He's not around to say no, you are not, or to ask for a DNA test. And also by his reputation, anyone would believe. So he said Kupe is the one who fed this information to him and told him things about the Khoza family that helped him infiltrate the family and actually commit these murders. He even said on that particular day, it is Mr. Kupe who bought a hammer for him and gave him and told him to hit each family member twice on the head to make sure they are dead. And so he started with the adult women, that is Mbali and her sister Dudu and Mfundo, who was 28 years old. So he hit them first because, of course, they're older, they're stronger. And after he hit them and killed them, he now attacked the children who were 7, 11, and 2 years old, respectively. And he actually raped 3 of them. It's not clear which 3 he raped, but I am sure he raped Karabo, the 11-year-old, because she was specifically mentioned. The other 2 that he raped, I'm not sure who they were. Reports don't say exactly who the other 2 are. And he also suffocated the children and strangled the children. For the adults, he hit them with a hammer over the head. He says Kupe is the one who bought this hammer and gave it to him and told him to actually rape these kids and rape and kill these people using the hammer and strangle others and suffocate others. They went to trial. Actually, it was pretty fast because they had They were in court within a week, and they were denied bail severally because, of course, they were considered a flight risk, and also for their own safety, especially Earnest Mabaso, because the country was up in arms. People were praying for their blood. People did not want them to get bail. People were asking for them to get life imprisonment or even death sentence. And denial of bail was actually to save them, to save their own skills, because if they were out there, they would have been killed. So before trial actually really commenced in January of 2019, this guy, Earnest Mabaso, committed suicide in a jail cell by hanging himself using shoelaces, and he actually expired and died. So the repercussion for that was that, unfortunately, the police could no longer hold Fita, because all the evidence they had against him was a testimony by a dead person. There were no witnesses. There was no DNA linking him to the crime. And the only reason he was part of that case, or he was a suspect, was because of the confession that Earnest Mabaso made. Earnest Mabaso was the witness. So when Earnest Mabaso died, they had nothing to hold him on. And unfortunately, they had to let him go. So it is unfortunate that no one paid for this horrific crime. And this family of 7 died a very painful death because they trusted someone that they met online, because they were kind, because they were open and welcoming and liked to show love to people. And unfortunately, no one paid for this crime. You could say he paid by death, but to many people, that was an easy way out. And Fita was released. The state dropped charges against him because there was nothing to hold him on. So that is the story, the sad story of the Khoza family. If you got something from this video, please consider subscribing. If you've already subscribed, thank you so much. And I will see you in the next one.